Hi everyone, it's Matt Bentley-Walls here. Today, this vlog's going to be a bit of a rambling, I think, but on the back of a question that somebody asked me the other day about why my photographs are all taken abroad. And it got me thinking. I mean, first off, they're not all taken abroad. I had a look and it's a valid point. I think probably about 2/3 are taken abroad, and the other third are taken in this country, here and there, various places in this country. But it sort of got me thinking. It's like, wow, it's quite, considering I spend most of my time here, I'm kind of surprised about why such a large proportion that find their way into my folio, that is, are taken abroad in different countries. I should also say that this is the first time I've had a comment from somebody that my audio and one of my previous vlogs wasn't great. And I listened back to it, and I think they had a point. So I've this is the culprit. It served me very well. A little lapel mic by Rode. I'm going to give that a test before I actually throw it out, just to make sure. Maybe I haven't connected it properly. But anyway, I've invested in a Rode Video Micro. It's called. So hopefully this is better. Comes with a little condenser microphone. Comes with a little wind jammer for outdoors if you're shooting outdoors, and a little cradle to take the bumps and what have you. It's just like a little rubberized cradle that it sits in that prevents knocks, sort of cushions the knocks, I suppose. And it comes with a Rycote wind jammer, which is pretty impressive. So that aside, I'm not into bigging up anything, and I don't even know if this is any good or not. So you be the judge. Leave me a comment. But hopefully it's okay. I did a little test earlier. So why photographs abroad? It got me thinking. You kind of carry on in a certain vein, and you go the way you go. That sounds a bit vague, but I mean, if you have 10 people and you give them 10 exact same cameras, no difference, same ISO, same settings, same weather conditions, and you set them off to go down a street on the same afternoon, all together, I'm absolutely convinced that those 10 people, even though they're walking down the street, they're not allowed to veer off and go down little back alleys or anything like that, just down one street, meet up a mile down the road, they'll all come up with different photographs. I mean, they'll obviously all be different, but some will peel off and gravitate towards reflections in windows. Some will, photograph cars. Some will photograph people. Some will be quite wide. Some will want to be really close up in people's faces. We all sort of gravitate towards a certain style of shooting, a certain way of shooting. And so this question, which is perfectly valid, other than to say not all my photographs are taken abroad, started me thinking. And it was like, it's absolutely true, without any shadow of a doubt, when I'm abroad, I am in my element. It's like being a kid again, quite literally. When you're sort of like, most of us can't remember, but we can remember being excited. We can remember opening a Christmas present. It didn't matter if it was the wrong Action Man or a scratchy jumper from Auntie. It didn't matter. It was the element of surprise. It was that, you know, that sort of unbridled excitement, that just pure newness. Everything's new. The smell of a new pair of shoes, the leather, petrol, your mum's perfume, or whatever it was. Tarmac, I remember being, for some reason. Everything was new. People were new. And it was somehow just exciting. No other way of putting it, really. And that's not kind of how I feel abroad, but that's how I feel abroad. Why is that? I mean, for me, I think there are two kinds of photographers when it comes to street photography, that is. For me, familiarity, I think, breeds complacency. So if I know somewhere inside out, it's like I really have to work hard to try and find something interesting to photograph. That doesn't mean that there isn't anything, but it's as though, well, okay, I've maybe photographed here 50 times before. For other people, that's a positive. There are photographers in London that do a kind of circuit. Certain buildings at a certain time of year or a certain kind of time of day or both. Sunlight cascades down and, they get an image and they wait for somebody to walk through the light. This kind of thing. And they're amazing at it. They get some brilliant images. For me, I know that I couldn't do that. Just as 10 people will walk down a road and peel off, and even though they're walking down the road, they'll come up with completely different images. For me, it's all about reportage. It's about being in that split second, in that moment. And so I thought, well, okay, that's fine. But what's that got to do with, being abroad? And I sort of thought back to when I first started out in photography. I have one good ear. This one is defunct. It's it's shot to pieces. Don't know why. Don't know whether I was born with it. No idea. I know I had some bangs on it earlier on, but this is impaired. And I do remember at school, teachers that had voices that resonated weren't so difficult. That wasn't so much of an effort. But people with soft, gentle voices, I could hardly hear. Didn't matter if I sat in front of them. I would miss stuff all the time. And I would, I'd kind of like sit there and try and look at their mouths to get a second cue as to what they might have said, and it was just, you'd start off with a good intention and it would just be too much like hard work. And you'd only have to miss a word, and it wouldn't necessarily always throw you, but it could completely throw the message of what they were saying. And before long, I'd find myself kind of just looking out of a window. I never sat at the back of a class, but I always seem to remember I positioned myself somewhere near, maybe not right next to the window, but somewhere where I could look out of the window. Not consciously, but that, was what I would do. And I would, So, in other words, the audio was shutting down and the visual was taking over. It didn't matter. It was just, I don't know, it could be a pigeon flying into a boring, drab, grey concrete playground. It didn't matter. There was just a whole world out there. It was like it was something that I could amuse myself with, I guess, when hearing became too difficult. And I think from there, I think it was pretty obvious that, hey, photography was going to be a pretty natural thing. In this country, again, it's okay. Everyone speaks English, but I just find the visual so intriguing. People, the non-verbal, you know, happiness, sadness. I just cue in. I'm right there. It's like a sort of. It's much easier to see and read people than trying to hear them, and trying to guess what they're saying. I mean, I remember one time somebody once said to me, we were out having a beer, and they said, you frown a lot. And I find that really disconcerting. It was like, gosh, do I? I mean, I thought that was awful. And I realised actually what I'm doing is, again, trying to lip read. If I've got a room full of people or a bar full of people, their voice is drowned out. That sort of louder ambient noise supersedes their voice unless I'm really up close, or they've got a really strong resonating voice. And so again, I'm looking at the mouth to try and get a second clue if I'm struggling, and that takes a lot of effort and a lot of concentration, and I think that's when the frown starts to kick in, and so this isn't a vlog about hearing, but this is why I think the visual is so incredible to me. What happens when I go abroad is that those two things kick in. So what if I don't speak the language? The audio is completely, it might as well be mute, because there's no point in trying to tune into a language I don't even speak. So the whatever hearing I have got just is cuts off immediately, and the visual then becomes incredibly powerful and attuned and alive. Like, whoa, you're in that moment, you're in that second so much. And plus, I don't know, I don't think I'm any different to anybody else, but I just love and embrace those differences, those different cultures, different smells, different dress, everything's different, and so everything is new again. Everything is astonishing. Everything, and that again heightens your, wherever you are, everything is new. So everything is photographable. Almost, it's you're spoilt for choice. It's like it's just an attack on the senses, an amazing attack on the senses. I don't know if I'm describing, the Italians when they gesticulate. It's everything just has a different code, a different mannerism, a different way, and that is like the same feeling I had when I was a kid. That sort of that pure, unadulterated excitement, and it. To raise a camera is just the most automatic thing. You want to photograph that, but more than that, it puts you in that zone. It gives you that extra, whatever it is you need to be in that moment, to be able to click at the right time, to press the button, that decisive moment, as Cartier-Bresson would say, although he didn't actually say that. That was an English translation. So yeah, it's just this. I noticed when I'm in England, my shots tend to be less in the moment. They'll tend to, I'll peel off and maybe take some portraits, or I'll take some more, not staged images, but images that. I took one, that I remember from a year back, just off the top of my head. 6 o'clock in the morning in the fog, with Trent Bridge in the background and a fisherman just pulling a fish in, and a dog on the bank sort of just looking, watching what he's doing, watching this fish coming in. And it's black and white image, and you've got diagonals of the steps to the banks of the River Trent. So they're more kind of, I have more than a split second, if you like, to take that photograph. It's less in the moment. That doesn't mean I don't take images in the moment, reportage. But that's my love. My true passion is that split second of, love, the human condition, and all of its amazingness and all of its absurdity. You know, I mean, I'll give you an example. There was a photograph I took in, I think, it was Munich. And it's just two women. So I'm sort of their profile to me. They're facing each other. One of them has obviously said to her friend, hold my ice cream while she rummages about in her bag. And I kind of saw all this. It was almost like, you don't even have to second guess anything. You just have this sixth sense, this intuition as to what is going on. And so she's given her ice cream to her friend, and she's rummaging so she can rummage in her bag and find something. And her friend is just there staring at these two ice creams like, I want them both. And it's kind of just, you can just see it. It's a split second, but it deals with, greed maybe, or, it doesn't say greed. It just asks the question. It's slightly comical, I suppose, but it's just that thing. There's another one taken in France where, two young dudes are sitting at a table. The guy's looking ultra laid back, and the girl is kind of like gawping at him across the table, like, like her tongue's about to fall out, utterly besotted with him. And it's just so obvious. But it was such a lovely photograph as well. And it's that sort of, the human condition and all of its variations, all of its nuances. And that's what I find special. I can't do that sort of beaten track thing, even though the photographs are amazing. I look at them and think, wow, but that's not me. Just as, I can look at an amazing landscape photograph. Not me, I can appreciate it, but, you gravitate to what you gravitate towards, and what makes your heart beat a little faster, and, or not, as the case may be, just whatever floats your boat. And for me, it's reportage. I've got a number of things to say, and I haven't sort of done a little list, and I'm not quite sure whether to talk about a couple of other things, but maybe I'll leave that, because I think some of my vlogs have been a little bit long recently. So I'll break it off into chunks. One of the things I wanted to talk about was a Henri Cartier-Bresson film. Now, leave me some notes, but it's about a 40-minute film. And I've looked at, I've looked at most Cartier-Bresson interviews, and he didn't do that many, and he did those towards the latter part of his life because he didn't want to be known, which is, very admirable and what have you. But I've seen the ones with the typical ones with, with the journos that ask him some questions, and some of them are better than others, but it's quite clear, I think, in quite a few of them that he thinks they're dumb questions, but maybe they recover. He looks like he's sitting there thinking, what have I agreed to, But then maybe they ask him a slightly more informed question next, and he perseveres. But there's one film, and it comes with a story, and I want to know if anybody out there has seen it. I'm going to leave it at that, but it's a film by Sarah Moon. I don't know too much about Sarah Moon. Other than she, I think, lives in Paris. she was a friend of Cartier-Bresson, and it was the first film. She's actually, an astonishing photographer herself, but more, I think, fashion. Very saturated colour, fashion. I've seen some of her stuff, and it's amazing for what it is. But they were clearly friends, and she did this film of Cartier-Bresson, and it's just the most. It's not clean and tidy, and it's quite loose in parts, but it's beautifully edited, and it's just got some amazing little anecdotes from various people. From her questions are amazing, and you just get this beautiful insight about the guy, and you can tell that he chose her because he knew her, he trusted her, he respected her to do this film. And you get a completely different dynamic than a broadcast company coming in and saying, yeah, we're going to do this and blah 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 blah. She knew him intimately. Well, not intimately, but you know what I mean. Like, she knew him well. Or maybe she did know him. I have no idea. But they knew each other well. And has anybody seen it? Does anybody know the film I'm talking about? I think it's just a film by Sarah Moon, or Henri Cartier-Bresson by Sarah Moon. Anyway, if anybody's heard of that or has seen it, let me know, because I think that's what my next vlog is going to be about, for anybody who's interested. And yeah, give me a shout. Thanks very much for stopping by. Cheers.